Sydney Bernice Sweeney entered the world on September 12, 1997, in Spokane, Washington, a region known for its serene natural beauty, surrounding mountains, and slower pace of life compared to the bustling metropolises that dominate the entertainment industry. Her upbringing in the Pacific Northwest played a foundational role in shaping her personality, grounding her in an environment of normalcy before her career catapulted her into the chaotic and demanding world of Hollywood. Sydney was born into a family that valued hard work and resilience. Her father worked in the hospitality industry, while her mother was a lawyer, professions that demanded long hours and determination, traits that Sydney would later adopt and channel into her own pursuits. She grew up alongside her younger brother, and their childhood was filled with the kinds of everyday experiences that made her appreciate the simple things in life, from playing outside in the expansive landscapes of Washington to participating in school and community activities. As a child, Sydney showed an early curiosity about performance. She was not from a show business family, and there was no immediate blueprint for pursuing acting, but her interest began when a small independent film was shooting in her town. At just 12 years old, she persuaded her parents to let her audition for a role, and to convince them of her seriousness, she put together a 5-year business plan, outlining how she intended to approach acting as a career and how it could become more than a fleeting interest. Her determination impressed her parents, and though they were skeptical, they supported her in giving it a try. This would become one of the first turning points in her life, as it set her on a path that would eventually lead to international recognition. The family moved to Los Angeles for her to begin pursuing acting seriously, and like many aspiring actors, the early years were filled with struggles, rejection, and countless auditions. Sydney was determined, however, to carve out her place in an industry known for its competitiveness. She began booking small roles on television, appearing in series such as 90210, Grey's Anatomy, and Criminal Minds. These early appearances were brief, sometimes consisting of only a few lines or a single scene, but they were crucial stepping stones that allowed her to gain experience and begin building a resume. Despite the difficulties of breaking into Hollywood, Sydney continued to pursue her education, showing that she was not willing to abandon her intellectual growth for the sake of chasing fame. She was academically driven, particularly interested in entrepreneurship, business, and later even pre-law studies. Her sharp mind and ability to balance both school and acting became defining characteristics. As she grew older, her roles began to increase in visibility. In 2018, she landed a recurring role in the acclaimed Hulu series, The Handmaid's Tale, where she portrayed. As Sydney Sweeney's role in Euphoria gained momentum and drew widespread attention, she found herself navigating a new chapter in her life where the distinction between her public image and her personal identity became more complicated. Playing Cassie Howard meant embodying a character that was deeply vulnerable, often sexualized, and placed in storylines that highlighted issues of self-esteem, relationships, and the consequences of seeking validation in unhealthy ways. Sydney spoke in interviews about how the emotional intensity of the role sometimes carried into her own life, requiring her to create firm boundaries between herself and her character. She recognized that while audiences often conflated actors with the roles they played, she had to remain anchored in who she was outside of the screen. This period also highlighted the resilience she had developed since her early days of auditioning and facing rejection. She began to use her rising profile to advocate for issues she cared about, including women's representation in the entertainment industry and the importance of mental health awareness. Sydney emphasized that while she embraced roles that explored the darker corners of human experience, she wanted those portrayals to contribute to broader conversations about empathy, identity, and growth. The critical acclaim for Euphoria opened doors to even more opportunities, and Sydney carefully considered her next moves. She was not interested in taking roles that merely repeated what she had already done. Instead, she looked for projects that could stretch her artistic abilities and align with her long-term goals as both an actress and a producer. Around this time, she continued developing The Players' Table, a project through her production company 50 Films, which reinforced her vision of having more agency in the stories she was telling. Collaborating with Halsey, who had built a career in music with her own unapologetic voice, was a natural fit and generated significant buzz. As she expanded her footprint in the industry, Sydney also became increasingly visible in the world of fashion and branding. She appeared on magazine covers, walked red carpets at prestigious events, and collaborated with luxury brands that valued her authenticity and fresh presence. For her, these partnerships were not just about glamour but also about establishing herself as a multifaceted personality whose influence extended beyond the screen. She carefully curated her image to balance glamour with relatability, sharing moments of her everyday life alongside high-profile appearances. One of the aspects that made Sydney particularly unique was her passion for cars. She purchased vintage vehicles and took on the work of restoring them herself, an endeavor she proudly showcased on her social media accounts. Her project of restoring a 1969 Ford Bronco became especially popular, earning her admiration from car enthusiasts and surprising many fans who associate. Sydney Sweeney entered the next phase of her career with a sense of clarity that few actors her age possessed. She was no longer just an actress trying to prove herself, she had become a recognized force in Hollywood, someone who had proven her ability to carry emotionally complex roles, deliver standout performances in ensemble casts, and captivate audiences across genres. But what truly set her apart was her determination to expand her role in the industry beyond acting, carving out a legacy that would endure long after the spotlight shifted elsewhere. Her production company, 50 Films, became the cornerstone of that legacy. Sydney wanted to champion stories that centered women, highlighted underrepresented voices, and gave younger creators opportunities to shine. By attaching herself not only as an actress but also as a producer, she created space for herself in rooms where decisions were made. It was a bold move for someone in her 20s, but it reflected her business acumen and foresight. She was not content to wait for opportunities to come her way, she was determined to create them. As her producing efforts gained traction, Sydney continued to balance them with a series of high-profile acting projects. The visibility of Euphoria and the White Lotus had made her a household name, but she recognized the importance of diversifying her roles to avoid typecasting. She actively pursued characters that challenged expectations, whether through independent films that offered creative freedom or blockbuster productions that broadened her reach. This dual approach allowed her to remain both an artist respected for her craft and a star with mass appeal. Her performances during this period revealed a growing maturity. Each role seemed to build on the last, showing not just her technical skill but also her emotional intelligence as an actress. She had a unique ability to humanize even the most flawed characters, giving them depth and relatability. Critics noted that her performances were marked by authenticity, an unwillingness to play to stereotypes, and a commitment to truthfully representing human complexity. The recognition she received through Emmy nominations was not only a personal achievement but also an affirmation that her approach to acting resonated at the highest levels. Being nominated alongside established industry veterans gave her confidence that she could hold her own in any space. Yet, she remained humble, often crediting her co-stars, directors, and crew for creating environments where she could excel. Sydney's collaborative spirit became one of her defining traits, making her a sought-after partner in the industry. Outside of acting, her image in the fashion and lifestyle world continued to grow. She graced the covers of major magazines, attended prestigious fashion shows, and became a fixture at global events. But she was careful not to let these ventures overshadow her acting. To her, fashion was another form of stole.